Korea again. This statement comes after reports that Kim Jong-un just ordered his military into a state of full readiness for war against the South. Tensions between both sides increased following an artillery exchange along their heavily fortified border on Thursday. The Japanese government just weighed in on this conflict, saying, quote, "We are strongly concerned over North Korea's actions. North Korea should exercise self-restraint in making such provocative acts." Let's turn to CNN's Kathy Novak. She is closely monitoring the situation there, the tensions on the Korean demilitarized zone. Kathy, good to have you with us. The very latest from the South Korean Defense Ministry is that South Korea will strongly retaliate if there's any additional provocation from North Korea. What more are you hearing and seeing there?
Well, South Korea's military is on high alert. That was the order given by President Park Geun-hye yesterday as well, to strongly take action against any further provocation from North Korea. And we're hearing out of North Korea's state news agency that Kim Jong-un, the leader, called together his Central Military Commission and told them to be fully battle ready, to be prepared to launch surprise operations from any time in the next few hours. That's after it issued an ultimatum yesterday. This followed this exchange of artillery fire at the border, not far from where I am now, George. What happened was South Korea reported 2 shells being fired in its direction along the demilitarized zone known as the DMZ. It fired dozens of its own shells back, and then Pyongyang said that South Korea must stop broadcasting propaganda messages across the border by tomorrow at 5 p.m. or it will take military action. Now, George, if I can just set the scene of what led up to this. Tensions have been rising over the past couple of weeks, and it all started when 2 South Korean soldiers were badly injured by landmines. Seoul blamed those landmines on Pyongyang. It says that North Korean soldiers crossed into the South Korean side of the DMZ to plant those landmines. So in retaliation, it restarted this program of what it calls psychological warfare, using these speakers to blast propaganda messages across the border. This is something that South Korea hasn't done in more than 10 years, and something that is known to anger the regime of Kim Jong-un, that likes to keep a very tight control on communications within North Korea. So North Korea has been threatening to blow up the speakers. It's thought that these speakers were the target of the shells yesterday, and it had also been warning that it will launch indiscriminate strikes against South Korea if this campaign of psychological warfare does not stop, George.
And South Korea giving no indication that that campaign will stop. So, Kathy, I'm just curious as far as people there around near the DMZ, what's the feeling, what's the mood? Because this type of rhetoric is nothing new. Are people concerned?
It isn't new. We hear this kind of bellicose rhetoric coming out of North Korea often, particularly around this type of year. That's because this is the time when the United States holds joint military exercises with South Korea, and we often hear threats coming out of the regime of Kim Jong-un. On the weekend, in fact, it was threatening to attack the U.S. mainland because of those joint military strikes. But as I say, this campaign of psychological warfare is something that hasn't happened in more than a decade, and that is new, and the tensions have been rising here. So the reaction has been cautious. There were evacuations yesterday. Residents nearby where this exchange of fire was going on were evacuated from their homes, brought into evacuation centers, and we're told that a few dozen still remain in those centers. George.
And Kathy, the North Koreans are also demanding that emergency UN Security Council meeting over these military exercises. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But of course, stay in touch with you there, Kathy. Thank you so much. Thai authorities